Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier. I'm going to give an overview of Weimar Germany with something of a timeline. It's the kind of thing that's good to have at the beginning of your study, the kind of thing you might go back and check from time to time in your studies in order to keep specific events in context, and of course to review again as part of your revision. I'm going to split Weimar into three periods: the early phase between 1918 and 1923, the period of recovery post-1923, taking us to 1930, and the period covering the Great Depression that will take us to Hitler becoming Chancellor. So, to the early phase. Now in history we want to know what happened, why things happened, and what effect they had. What changed? What continued? Was it for the better or not? And so on. Well, in this first phase of Weimar, which I think can best be described as a period of utter chaos, utter turmoil, the kind of questions that come to mind are still why? Why did Weimar plummet into chaos, for example? Still, what happened? But when we come to the effects, the questions get a little more specific, I think. How did Weimar manage to survive? Why was the armistice so harsh, the peace treaty so harsh, and why did the government accept it? Why was such a democratic constitution so problematic? Why was Weimar so unpopular? And why did both the right and the left move to overthrow it? And again, how did Weimar survive? If you have these questions covered, you will have a sound understanding of this first period, and you will be well prepared for your exam. I provide a timeline for you, but exact dates aren't important. Just as well as, infuriatingly, some of them vary depending on the book you're reading and how they interpret the beginning and end of events. The order in which things happen is important though. But for dates, come on, who can remember them? Not me. I go for things like in early January or else in the middle of 1919. And trust me, that's good enough to get you a top grade. Next, recovery and the golden years. I see this period as showing an alternative to Hitler. It's a period of reform and working with other powers, rather than revolution and bullying. Streseman's policy of fulfillment, fulfilling the terms of the Treaty of Versailles while all the time trying to revise them. Mind, it still earned fierce criticism from the right. So it's a period of recovery from the disaster that was 1923, starting with the Dawes Plan of 1924 and ending with the Young Plan of 1929. There's also a new currency for Germany, the Locarno Treaties, and German membership of the League of Nations as a permanent member of the Council. And there are the golden years, when it seemed to Germans that they were putting the bad times behind them forever. But there were those loans, and there was the Wall Street crash. And government was still unstable, with too many changes of government, and anti-Weimar parties still attracting a lot of votes. So to the Great Depression years. As Stresemann had feared, Germany had indeed been dancing on a volcano, and the volcano blew with the Wall Street crash. As unemployment grew to more than 6 million, and that is using the official data, the reality was much higher. Brüning's cuts to unemployment benefits meant that as 1932 was coming to an end, only 10% of those unemployed were receiving full unemployment insurance benefits, and more than 16% were without any regular support. No wonder Brüning became known as the Hunger Chancellor, the most unpopular chancellor in Weimar's history, and that's saying something. Then Weimar lurches into the period of presidential government, von Pappen's cabinet of barons, and Hindenburg's near total reliance on Article 48 and decrees, so that in 1932 he issued 66 decrees, whilst the Reichstag passed just 5 laws. And all the time there was a clear correlation between unemployment and Nazi votes, so that ultimately von Papen persuaded Hindenburg to accept Hitler as Chancellor, with himself as Vice-Chancellor. But let's be clear, Weimar democracy was already dead by that point. So, the major events you should know about, and something of a timeline for you. I certainly think it's useful to think of Weimar in those 3 phases. Nothing startling in this presentation, but nevertheless I hope it's useful for you. I'll put the points shown on each slide on my website, History Made Easier, for you. Thank you, as always, for listening, and the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.